KoitCast.
Today's guest is a theologian and exorcist with a classics degree from the University of Glasgow. She's had a variety of experience across the supernatural spectrum, and a lot of these have been captured in her book Mystic Visions. Please give a massive Koit welcome to Alyson Dunlop. Hello Alyson, and welcome to KoitCast.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
It's an honour for me to have you here, so thank you for coming, much appreciated. Let's go in with the classic that I always ask everyone. Tell us a bit about yourself, who are you, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I'm Reverend Mother now, Reverend Mother Alyson Dunlop Shanes, and I am based in Glasgow. I was originally from Ayr, which is in the west coast of Scotland. Brought up in a Protestant family there, but went through various different religions, Buddhism, paganism, spiritualism, and finally, over all the years, settled with the Catholicism, and I'm now a member of the Old Catholic Apostolic Church, and I'm a priest with them. I've just went through my ordination, just been ordinated with them, and I have written books. I've got a podcast, so that's kind of who I am. I'm also an exorcist as well, which we can talk about if you like.
Definitely, yeah.
I've been involved with a group called SPI Scotland since that's the Facebook page that I run, SPI Scotland, and that's Strange Phenomena Investigations. They started off in 1979 with Malcolm Robinson, and I was involved from the 90s with them. And then they kind of went defunct a little bit. And I asked Malcolm if I could start things up in Scotland again while he was down in England living. And so that's what I've been doing for, well, must be about 15 years now. Maybe it's not as much as that, 10 to 15 years. And it's obviously investigating anything strange, paranormal, supernatural. But we also run a conference, the Scottish UFO and Paranormal Conference. And I give a talk at that every year. My sort of special subjects are more the sort of supernatural side of religion and spirituality and mysticism. I've just written a book about my own personal experiences called Mystic Visions, and I've heard quite a lot of those sorts of things over the years. So I'm not just sort of like talking the talk from a theoretical point of view. I have actually experienced things as well. So that's who I am.
That's a lot of stuff, but we're going to break a lot of that down now. And I don't have this question prepped or anything, but I'm interested in it because you said you flitted almost from one religion to the next to land where you are now. What was missing from the ones you tried, or what was there in the one that you plumped for in the end? Do you know what I mean? What made you jump from one to the next?
That's a great question. I think I just kept on wanting more and more knowledge, and it wasn't until I went back to uni to do a short course, and I was looking at Christianity and literature, and I'd never quite gotten to grips with Christianity. I'd been involved in paganism for a number of years. I think what was missing from paganism, although it's got a lot going for it, and I love the whole sort of nature-based stuff, I think that's really important in, this day and age, when we should be taking care of the environment. Connecting with nature is a really important thing. And in fact, forest churches are springing up now, which sort of almost combine the two, Christianity and paganism, and I love that idea. It's just a little bit wet in Scotland for me to start up a forest church.
And windy, yeah. No trees about to build any churches.
It would have to be a really thick forest, you know.
Yeah.
So I think what was missing from that for me, that I think probably not enough structure and community. Now there is community in paganism, but it's just I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it as much. And I see, for me, Christianity is not distinct from nature religions in that I partially, and only partially, view Christ as a solar deity. So I sort of, found that bond and that connection. And things were happening, like the angels were presenting themselves to me. And there's like lots of different things happening that that was drawing me back into I'd been away from the paranormal stuff for a while and involved in paganism, and I was starting to experience things that were drawing me more back into the paranormal, but they weren't distinct from religion either. So there was things like having an entity in my flat that I had to deal with. And I, I was never one of those pagans that um, made a distinction really between paganism and Christianity. I wasn't like anti-Christian just because I was a pagan. Whether that was to do with my upbringing, I don't know. Um, and let me just say that none of this really takes away from my belief that Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross. That doesn't take away from any of that stuff. I think that's true, but I think a lot is mixed together with mythology and even astrotheology. I'm really interested in astrotheology, which is the mythological part that involves the stars and the
Hmm.
planets. That's a huge subject in itself, and I've actually given a talk on that, which is on my YouTube channel if anybody's interested. Um, and I guess I think that also is something that converges the two, paganism or science as well, if you want, nature and Christianity. They all sort of merge together really, and I find it difficult mm, to make a distinction really between all of them. But I think that my experiences with evil entities is probably the thing that drew me most towards Christianity, because I felt that and it was the thing that got rid of it was calling upon Mary. I was very drawn to Mary in the first place, but calling upon Mary and the angels and Jesus to help me with that situation, and for that to actually work, and I did things like I anointed my door with holy oil, sprinkled holy water. Um,
I think then this is an ideal opportunity for us to dive directly into that then, because I
okay.
saw from your like profile, so to speak, that it says you've had supernatural attacks on you, and obviously you've alluded to it
Mm.
there. Can you give us the story of what happened, and then I imagine that would lead into what helped save you from that.
Okay, so well, there was something that happened prior to that, and that was the incubus attack. And I'm aware that people talk about sleep paralysis
Hmm.
and then they stop there and they don't look any further. But people have been experiencing the incubus demon for a long, long time. And there are certain characters that appear in that scenario. You've got the young male demon, the young female demon. You've got the old hag. You've got
Personal
the
favorite of mine, the old
yeah,
hag. Yeah.
yeah, the little imp. So that's why it's obviously called old hag syndrome sometimes. And she is the Mara, where we get the word nightmare from. Um, she appeared as well. So what happened there was I had been dreaming about vampires, just to set the scene, and that vampires, that's another subject, and it's comes into this as well. I'm not saying that I was attacked by a vampire, but I think these sort of demons are vampiric in
In
nature, and
nature, yeah.
they draw your life essence from you. And I woke up. The room was a shade, this strange shade of blue. It didn't feel quite right, but everything was the same in the room. I tried to wake up my partner and couldn't. That's a feature of this phenomenon. And I was flipped over onto my back at that point and pinned down by this young male entity. And he said, "You thought you could get away from me, didn't you?" And then he started scraping at my neck with this long, sort of razor-like fingernail of his. And it's trying to cut my throat. Um, Now, I know that some attacks are sexual in nature and some are murderous in nature, and this demon was definitely trying to kill me. And I looked to my right, to the window, and I saw the Mara standing there. And she was laughing into her hand and finding it all very amusing. I passed out. I must have passed out at some point. I woke up. My neck was sore, but there was no mark there. And about a week later, this all started happening again. The room was this blue shade. I felt I was paralyzed both times. Um, and I at that point I managed to scream out, and my partner came in and put on the light, and it stopped. Now, 14 years later, I met somebody at the Stirling Paranormal Festival, and he had had a series of UFO sightings above Glasgow leading up to the millennium. One of these, he had photoshopped a UFO into the area of Glasgow that he had seen this, and we're sitting in the train this day, and because I think we'd like buddied up the next day, and so we
Okay.
were going to the festival together. And he said, "Oh, I've brought the photograph to show you," because he'd been telling me all about it. And he slid it across the table, and I picked it up, and I think the colour drained out my face because this UFO had been above my flat where I had experienced the incubus attack. Um, he said it had been like a ball of blue plasma, which had imploded and disappeared. To me, it's less of a UFO and more of a possible portal to another potentially demonic dimension. And this had happened in the same month as my incubus attack. So I'm not saying that it was related, but I would find it odd if it wasn't related.
Hmm.
especially the color of it. You know, it was giving out this blue light, and I had seen
Definitely.
this blue light. So here was a completely independent witness corroborating what I'd experienced, or partially corroborating what I'd experienced. So that was that first. Now, I didn't know anything about incubus attacks. So I investigated the phenomenon, and I asked other people if they had experienced this. Usually they looked at me and, you know, like I had horns in my head, and said, absolutely not, they hadn't. What was I going on about? I thought maybe I had a sleep disorder, so, you know, I looked into that kind of stuff. Found out about sleep paralysis, but it was never quite enough to explain to me what had happened. The second thing that happened,
Before you go into the second thing, you all right
go
if I
on.
ask you a couple of questions on that first one? Obviously that the chap that you budded with on the train showed you this photo, and then you thought, "Oh crikey, blah blah blah, that's my stuff."
Mhm, mhm.
Corroborates. Did you tell him?
Yeah, I think I did.
And what was his
If
reaction?
um, I think, well, he was more into the UFO subject. I think he just thought, yeah, well, that's really strange, but he didn't say much more than that, to be honest. He's written a book as well. He didn't mention uh, this in his book because it was, I think, more focused on the UFO subject. Uh, as I say, to me, although on the face of it, from a distance, it might have appeared like a UFO, I am not convinced that it was, like, you know, an actual flying object.
Yeah.
Um, Aerial phenomena might, you know, this UAP term that I really hate now, unidentified aerial phenomena, might be, you know, loosely a better term. But no, I think he just found it interesting that this had happened. That wow, you know,
And
that
filed it away under sort of half ignore. Yeah,
kind
probably.
of, kind of, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It just
Um,
wasn't. I think it just wasn't his bag, you
no,
know.
that's fair enough.
So
I can see why if you're hyper focused. But I've had this conversation with other people before where you can't ignore the outliers from your perspective because that could be
yeah,
the key piece of data. But anyway,
yeah.
the other thing you said, which was interesting, so you're in bed, you can't move, and then you get flipped over.
Yeah.
That's weird in of itself. So you were then on your front, presumably, or were you back sleeper
No,
to start with?
no. I'm usually sleep on my side, but no, I turned over, like, on my right hand side, and my partner was on my right hand side.
Okay.
So I turned over and was trying to waken him like that, and then I was flipped like this,
Oh, whoa.
so like flipped onto my back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
That's scary. I've had one sleep paralysis, and I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's obviously
mhm,
shares
mhm.
a lot of it. It's a scary thing being in that moment.
Terrifying.
I know that much. Yeah, most one of the most scared I've ever been. And I sensed a sort of presence, and I remember trying to shout out, but nothing would work. So
Mhm.
that is scary. So was that the same exact thing for you at that moment? You were trying it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're panicking,
Mm,
um, you know, and uh, the second time when I was trying to shout out and eventually managed to, as you say, it's you can't initially. It's very difficult to shout out.
how did
Um,
you manage it the second time then? Was you like, I will bloody do it, sort of thing?
yeah, yeah. Well, I was really straining to do it, and eventually something just happened. I don't know what, but something just happened, and I managed to scream. So, but I understand what you mean. It is
Mm.
extremely difficult to do when you're paralyzed.
Yeah, I couldn't move at all.
Mhm.
Very, very, very odd, very strange. Okay, so
Mhm.
that was my couple of questions there. I have one more, but I'll also save that towards the end because I think that's where that bigger conversation will come in. But anyway, sorry,
Okay.
carry on.
Okay. So the second thing that happened was somebody had come to fix my boiler. This is in another flat. And I didn't like the vibe of him. And I didn't know, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something that I didn't like. And after he had gone, I didn't feel like I was alone in the flat. I felt the presence of something.
Okay.
And I had never felt that way before, but I definitely did not feel alone. And that night there was sounds in the flat, like things falling and clicking and snapping sounds and just unusual sounds that I'd never heard in the flat before. And I got up to investigate, couldn't find anything. The next day, I went through, opened the curtains, and there was the sound of like a hand slamming down on top of a book, you know, that kind of
Hmm.
sound, quite loud. And then, and again, I looked, couldn't see anything. And then later that day, the kitchen flooded. And at that point, I said, look, I know that you're here. And you have my attention, but you cannot attach yourself to me. This is my home, and you're not getting in. No way. So just leave. And a couple of weeks went by and there was nothing. And then I I woke up with the sound of scratching on the wall, and the shelves were shaking, the bed was vibrating and shaking. Um, and I think I just said, just go away. A couple of weeks went by again, and I woke up with an invisible presence force, um, which had a hold of my wrists, and I was pushing it off by my wrists. At this point in my life, because I'd experienced several things, um, I was more angry than fearful. My fear had changed to anger. And I told it, yeah, just try it, see what happens.
You're like going, come on then.
Yeah, see what happens. I was really angry, told it to go away in no uncertain terms. And after that, because it did at some point, it must have backed off. After that, I decided I was going to do an exorcism in the house. And that's exactly what I did, using the methods that I mentioned to you. It was kind of a combination of paganism and Christianity, because in paganism, when you create sacred space, you go around your environment with salt and salt for earth, water, um, incense for air, and a candle for fire. So
I
it's the
didn't
four
realize that.
elements.
Makes sense. Yeah. Wow.
It's the four elements. So I used that. I blessed everything. Um, and I also had black salt, which is you can make that just with salt and ash. And I sprinkled that at the doorstep. Um, and as I was doing all these things, I I'd also the flat had been was cleaned as well, and it was the water that I used to clean was holy water. So everything was blessed and sacred and holy. Uh, so as I was doing all these things, I was calling upon the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Jesus, Mary, the angels, the saints. I was calling upon all these forces to come and gather and get rid of this thing. I drew crosses and pentagrams. Pentagrams is a pagan symbol. The 5 points mean earth, air, fire, and water. And the circle, the fifth one is spirit.
Okay.
So that's what that symbolizes. It does not symbolize Satanism.
Yeah, which is what most people think, yeah.
Yeah. Satanism uses both upside down pentagrams and upside down crosses. So if you're going to say that the pentagram is evil, you would have to say the same of the cross. And that obviously is not, that is obviously false.
See, my thoughts here is it the symbol or is it the intention behind the symbol? For the same reason that the swastika was originally a holy symbol and then the intention was switched to make it a negative one. So is it just that?
That's correct. Yeah. In fact, when I was in Singapore once and I was in the Little India, and there was a Hindu shop, and I walked in and saw swastikas. My reaction was, oh, wow, and you get that sort of, oh my goodness, why? I mean, I knew why. I knew
Yeah.
it's a solar
But it's
symbol.
ingrained into you, isn't it? To
It's
think negative.
it's ingrained into you to feel a negative thing when you see that. But of course, it's a solar symbol. It's a sign of the sun. Um, so yeah, so these images, um, if you are aware of what they are, then you can use them positively. And so that's what I did. And within a day, I was sitting at my computer and the sound of millions, I mean millions, I couldn't work out what on earth was going on. It's like hailstones hitting off glass and it was coming from my ceiling. It was like that static, loud static sound. And my cats were just, they were staring up, and so I knew this is not in my imagination. The cats are taking this in as well.
Is
What
this the
is going
ceiling
on?
inside or is you talking the roof
Yeah,
outside?
yeah, the ceiling inside.
Okay.
I couldn't see anything, but it was the sound of millions of hailstones. I checked with the woman upstairs because I couldn't visualize what she might be doing to create this sound. And she said no,
Dropping lots of salt around, I think.
it would have had to have been like beads on a wooden floor, and she would have had to have been like, on one of those contraptions,
That fires them out. Yeah.
floating about above the floor,
She's like
and
that
and
though, isn't she?
dropping
Yeah.
and dropping bags of beads on the floor.
Just to mess with you, yeah.
Just to mess with my head, yeah. Um, she said no, she hadn't heard anything, but she had felt someone sitting on her bed that night, and the next day she woke up with an extremely sore leg. I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but that was the information she gave me. So that was the sound. Now, later on, I read that this exact same pattern had happened with another priest who had been conducting an exorcism. And this sound signified the end of the exorcism. It meant the exorcism had worked.
Okay.
And suddenly I realized, I think at that point, that everything in my life had been leading me to that point. a book that my grandfather had given me. This is part of another sort of backstory. Because he would have been horrified had he realised what he'd actually given me. Uh, yeah, he wasn't doing it to mess with my head either.
Sure, sure.
But he knew that my dad and I liked to watch Hammer horror films, and he liked to go into charity shops and pick up books. And he had seen this book that he thought might be a sort of a scary but a bit tame. Because it had a religious element to it. But in fact, the book that he gave me was The Exorcist.
Oh, lovely.
And also, for no particular reason that I know of, in a place that I used to work in, this man that gave us all nicknames nicknamed me The Exorcist. I don't know why. Wasn't even on that path at that moment in time. But it just seemed to me that this was what I'd been guided to do.
Subtle signpost sort of thing that you would eventually look back on and think, ah, I was guided there. That sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. I just maybe didn't pick up on it. But I certainly realized that I had the ability to do it. And that I think was where my first steps began in, well, I'm obviously been guided to the priesthood, but I can't be the kind of priest that I want to be, which would be Roman Catholic, because they don't accept women. They also don't accept divorcees, and I'm a divorcee. So there'd be a few different reasons why they wouldn't accept me in the Roman Catholic Church. And I then met a guy called Bishop Parry, David Parry, and he guided me a little bit further along the path. And he's now a bishop in the Old Catholic Apostolic Church as well. So that was where if I hadn't have met him, I probably wouldn't have realised where to go with this. But that he sort of helped me. He understood my pagan background, that those beliefs just didn't disappear. That, you know, he was very interested in Gnosticism as well, and liberal Catholicism. So all those things combined, he sort of showed me this is a possible route. And that's where I found myself today.
Amazing. I've been investigating this side of things. Well, I say investigating, I've been talking to people about this side of things for a long time, which is these small nudges or steps we take along the way that build foundations for us to be where we are now. I find that highly interesting because everyone I speak to say they've been subtly nudged,
Yeah, yeah,
which almost implies a life plan, which then asks bigger questions. So anyway, I'll
yeah.
get back to that later on, but a couple questions for you. The Boiler Man, the one that carried the
Mm,
item, the beast or whatever it was, into your house.
mm.
Do you think that was a happenstance that this guy was attached to and then it decided to jump into your flat? Or was it a nefarious plan by that demon or whatever it was to hitch a ride knowing it would get to you? What have you
Well,
thought that was?
yeah. I mean, I have actually thought that as well. I've wondered that exact question. Um, because I mean, to begin with, I thought that thing just it was attached to him, and he came in here, and it just thought, I
You're
think I'll
better.
just,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I'll just stick around here. Um, or as you say, was that planned somehow? And if so, why? Why was it planned? But I had been under a demonic attack before, so it, you know, did it just recognize that, well, here's
There's a
a
potential.
possible, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting either way, isn't it? If it was just a
It is,
happenstance or if it was planned.
absolutely. And I mean, why? Again, I mean, that's just that's the main question in both
Here's the
of
thing, though:
those is why.
if it was a planned thing, right? You could almost state that that demon or whatever it was
Hmm.
is also part of the bigger plan that was put
Hmm.
there to help get you to the exorcism bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
does that mean then that good and evil are actually the same thing?
Mm.
If you think of it in those terms, I don't know.
Yeah, some people think that certain things happen because God allows them to happen. Um, rather than it being I mean, there is a continual battle between good and evil. But for the greater good, does God allow certain things to happen?
So that it
So
prompts the greater good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
Interesting.
it is interesting, but I mean that I don't think that that would be the case on every occasion. But I mean, in life, that I think can happen as well. That I guess maybe I can't really think of an example right now, but I suppose war might be, if someone was to decide that to sacrifice one person, this is a really big philosophical question, isn't it?
Mm.
Would save millions, would they sacrifice that one person? So to put me in harm's way demonically in order to then save me spiritually and then go on to save other people spiritually, deliver them from evil, is that, you know, that's the bigger picture.
Well, let's take that question then and then apply it to you. Well, use a mirror and reflect it right back to you. If that is 100% the case, right, that this demonic entity was put in your path to cause you harm for X amount of time, just so that you chose the good you then went on to save people, knowing that, would you now go back to it and say to your younger self, I'll accept that because I know what the outcome will be?
Yes,
And there is the answer, isn't
yes,
it? Yeah.
without a doubt. Because if I can help, see, these things are extremely damaging, extremely terrifying, and they want your soul.
Why? Here's the question. Why do they want it?
I think because it takes you away from God, and that's all they want to do.
Are we just tallies on a
Just,
chart, like one in this column? I've got her now, one.
yeah,
God's going, yeah, I'll have this one, one.
well, yeah, I suppose if you want to put it in those terms, I
Mm.
guess you could see it that way. Anything that takes you away from God and good is what these things want. And I do say to people, if they are under attack, try to connect to God, and sometimes they don't have that belief. And so it's very difficult. And I don't want to be the sort of person who tries to convert. I I've never liked that idea of going out your way to convert somebody. To reason with them, yes, and to say to them, look, I think that this will help you if you're open to it. So they have to be open to it. And the thing is that if they're asking for your help,
That's a
then
different thing, isn't it? Yeah.
this is my brand of help,
Mm.
If you have Buddhist ideas, well, I'm probably not going to be the person to help you. Go to a Buddhist priest because they're trained in a different way. And Buddhism they do exorcisms in Buddhism. In every religion, you'll find a form of exorcism, because these things are not just they don't just manifest in Christianity. They manifest in all
Everywhere. Yeah.
faiths and all cultures. They manifest. So if somebody comes to me, then they have to be open to the brand of exorcism that I'm going to give them. And that would be connecting with God and bringing God into yourself, opening your heart and your mind to those possibilities, and asking for his help and for the angels' help and for Mary's help. But Mary's great for chasing away demons, because she embodies mercy and love. And demons can't stand that. They cannot stand that. So if you can bring her into your heart, then you have got a really good chance of getting rid of the demon.
And no one wants a demon, so we got to call on these things. And I'm going to tell you a little personal story now that I don't think I've ever said ever, but it's an interesting one. It was in a dream, but one of those dreams that you almost think, hold on, this is a bit too much. This is so real. I was in the boot of a car, and when my girlfriend listens to this, she'll like this, but I don't know why I was in the boot of a car, but I was. And then the boot of a car opened up, and then there was this black thing, I can't think of the word. It's not a shape that you would recognize, and it was making this horrible demonic sort of clicking noise, going sort of like that, right? Hard to explain. And immediately, and I am not religious in any way, shape, or form, apart from maybe spiritually, I went, in the name of Jesus Christ, go away. Yeah. Where did that come from a non-religious person? And it went. That told me two things. One, there's some power in it, and two, was that real? Because it was automatically came out like a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
How weird is that?
That's to me, that's beautiful that you were able to draw upon that power to help you in that situation. And it does sound like it was very real.
It felt real. I don't know, obviously, because you're not in that waking state where, like, I know this is a piece of paper, as an example.
Yeah, I
but
know what you
there
mean.
is still a knowing attached to it, a sort of like a deeper knowing. I find it odd, but that told me that there is some power in the names. So when you were calling on your art, you said earlier you were calling on archangels and angels and Mary, etc. There is some weight to it. It's not just you saying it, is what I'm getting
I
at.
think so. Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. That they hear you. If your intention is sincere, they hear you. During exorcisms that I've conducted, when you say the name, when you call upon them, the demon does not like it, and it helps to expel the demon from the person.
It's a powerful thing. Powerful thing.
It's a very powerful thing, yeah.
I have one more question, right, before we move on, which is the Joan upstairs with her beads, or whatever her name is, creating that noise. Is that noise the death knell of a demon, or is it like a gong playing to signify it's gone? What do you think it is?
I think it's that negative energy dispelling.
Like electrically crackling away?
Yeah, yeah, and leaving. It's interesting as well that that UFO, for want of a better term, that was seen above my flat, it had this sort of plasma effect. So that might be something to do with what that power is made up of. I'm unsure. I'm unsure.
It definitely makes you question, and I'm going to throw the question in now. I was going to save this for later, but sod it, let's lob it in now. So UFOs and or portals or whatever, because I think it's all linked. I've spoken to enough people recently that say it's all linked. It's one phenomena presenting in different guises, yeah, different masks.
Mhm, mhm.
Is that where you lie with it? So, like aliens, as an example, are demons, or could be the same paranormal phenomenon.
I don't think aliens are necessarily demons, um, but I think that people can mistake demons for aliens. I think some aliens have less than good intentions for us, but I think also we have space brothers out there who have good intentions for us, who maybe come from other dimensions or that we might mistake for aliens when they're actually angels. Now, one experience that I had was very much like that when I woke up and there was a circle in the ceiling above. It was like a platform that I could see. There was a beam of light coming to my forehead, and it seemed to be, I think, allowing me, maybe it was going to my third eye, and it seemed to be allowing me to see all this. And when there was a being looking down, and when he saw me, he said, "We've got her." And other beings came across and they looked down over this platform. And one of them reached down and said, "You have to tell people about us." And I quickly agreed because I was terrified and excited and elated and all these different emotions. And he said, "No, you must promise that you will tell people about us." And I said, "I will, I promise." And at that, I was taken out of this state. The whole thing just disappeared because I became aware of this noise at my side. And as it turned out, it was my cat who was very distressed, and he was howling and he was jumping and pacing back and forward and trying to waken me up. Or I say waken me up, but get me out of whatever state I was in, because he was not familiar with what was going on and he wasn't happy about it. And I had my shoulders and my head were off the pillow. I had felt myself being drawn up off the pillow.
Okay.
And when it all ended, I felt myself, bouncing back
Drop
onto
down,
the
yeah.
pillow. So afterwards, I thought, okay, so they looked kind of like aliens, like the Nordic, except they had dark hair.
Okay.
They weren't blonde Nordics. They were what people have witnessed as Palladians. Because I looked at pictures and I saw that these were things that other people had seen, and that's what they called them. But I also wondered if in fact they were angels, or what in the past people have called angels. But they definitely there was a good feeling about them, although I was partially terrified. There was a good feeling about them. If they'd wanted to hurt me, they would have hurt me. They didn't hurt me. And they were desperate for me to tell people about them. Why? Well, I think that it's because they can help people and people have forgotten about them. Or, some people are beginning to forget about them.
Here's a question, though, quickly to interrupt here. Sorry about that. But it's a needed question.
Okay.
If you didn't know what they were, I could be angels, could be Pleiadians, could be, or a third thing that we haven't spoken about, how would you know how to talk about them as to what they were? Do you know what I mean?
I guess just like the describing them, I mean, they were human in appearance, although I didn't feel that they were human. There was something slightly different, but they were human in appearance. They wore like a uniform that was reminded me of the sort of Star Trek type uniforms, sort of
Good, that's what we want. Yeah.
clinging, it sort of clung to them. Yeah, I guess one of them was slightly different. He had slightly fairer hair. He was the one that spoke to me, and he had a slightly different uniform, which suggested that he was in charge.
Did he speak or did he mentally speak?
Somebody's asked me that before, and I I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I spoke the words or it was
Just there,
telepathy.
sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. Or whether, did I speak the words, but it was in an out of body state, but I think the words were spoken. I don't think, although the message was, I think, telepathic, the words were spoken. Like I heard them,
And you saw the
you
lips
know.
moving, maybe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
suggests almost like communication across a dimension or something. I don't know. I'm
I
just throwing
think,
that out.
yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. I think when the first being said, we've got her, that they'd obviously been trying
Tuned in.
to tune in and so yeah, and suddenly they'd managed it, and this beam of light, which if you look at some medieval artwork of the Annunciation, where Gabriel is bringing the news of Jesus, of Mary's pregnancy to Mary, there's a beam of light going to her forehead, which suggests to me that other people, I would have liked to have spoken to the artist and said, why did you do that?
Yeah, what was the
Why
intention
did
again?
you, what was the beam of light there? And you can sometimes see a circle up in the sky or up in, but this beam of light going to her forehead, sometimes it's Gabriel, sometimes it's a dove, which symbolizes the Holy Spirit. And it's going to her third eye. So, what are they trying to say, or have they experienced something? You also see in artwork platforms with angels looking down over them. You see that a lot in churches. Not just in churches, but people have experienced these things, and they maybe didn't know how to express it, so they drew it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, the artwork through history, because it can genuinely be viewed a number of ways, can't it? Because ultimately, art is subjective, i.e., it's the person looking at it saying, "Oh, that could be that." But unless you've got the words, of the person who created it, he's there standing saying, "No, I drew that because of this, and this represents this." How are you ever to know? All we can do is look back and assume. But I can see it that way, by the way. These things could be like divine angels looking down, or it could be UFOs with occupants looking down, telling us things.
Yeah,
Who knows? But I
yeah,
can see it.
yeah. Some people have said that as well. They've given talks and said that these drawings are UFOs. I, I don't think that they are. I think it's, that sort of mistaken thing that the guy saw an object in the sky and thought it was a UFO, and I'm not convinced that it actually was a physical object. So yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question now on that scenario you just told me about, obviously the platform, etc. And it's going to sound like I'm being an arse, but I'm genuinely not. My
No,
intentions are
go
pure
on.
when I say this, and it will
Go
relate
on.
to my one as well.
Okay.
How much weight do we put on real experience versus human imagination? And I say that in the way that, how do I know that the experience I had with this me in the boot and that spirit black thing, was that real? Or was it my mind as Paul right now here imagining it?
Mhm, mhm.
Do you know what I mean? How
Yeah,
have you
yeah.
reconciled that with what you've seen?
Okay. Well, when I had the incubus experience, as I said before, I looked at the mythology of it and I looked at, could it have been sleep paralysis? And I came to the conclusion, because I would never know, that it didn't really matter. What mattered was that I had the experience. The experience was real to me.
Right, okay.
And that, I think, is how I reconcile these things. That yes, I could be dreaming these things, but it is real to me. I experience them. That's why I say I'm an experiencer of these things, because whatever message is given, it's given for a reason, and it's very real to me.
So it's not necessarily the method of message, it's the message itself is the most important
It's
thing.
the most important thing, I think.
Okay.
And the message there was quite simply to tell people about them. And I realized that it was an important thing to do, because these beings can help people. They can be called upon to help people. In that respect, they must be real. If they can help people, they have to be real.
Otherwise, they can't help people. Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, they can't help people. And what would be the point in me telling people about them? There would be no point. But yeah, I mean, I totally get you. Was that something that my mind just manifested? And I can't say one way or the other. It comes down to belief, I suppose.
Mm.
And my belief is that it was real, and that it was brought to me across dimensions from other beings, whether they were extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
They
because
weren't
angels
of
are anyway, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you can say that they were extraterrestrial.
Let's. I'm going to hit on this angel thing now, right? Because a lot of people will talk about angels, and a lot of people will talk about demons. What are they?
Well, there's lots of different answers to what. Are you asking what are
Yeah,
angels?
what are they?
Yeah,
It could be physical, it could be mental, whatever, however you want to answer. But what are
yeah.
they?
I mean, I guess it depends on the mythology that you're looking at, because um, in the Bible, they are beings brought from God, bringing messages, or going between heaven and earth. The demons in some mythologies, it's fallen angels. So they went against God and they were thrown out of heaven, led by Lucifer. Um, in I think it's in Gilgamesh, Lilith, Adam's first wife, Lilith, she was the mother of all the demons that are in the earth. So that's a different mythology. So as I say, if depending on the mythology, you'll get a different answer. Some people say the angels are made of pure fire. I guess for me, they just are messengers from God. I don't have to know what they're made up of. But they transcend, if that's the right word, is that the right word? But they are able to transcend heaven and earth. They're able to go between both.
Go between, you mean? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Transcend's not the right word.
Traverse, probably.
Yeah. Between heaven and earth. And just sort of bridge that gap. There's something in between.
You see, it's weird when I throw the question out to myself and other people. It's like you can't really think of it because you look at us, right? We know this stuff here is flesh, right? That's Paul. He's a physical being. That's flesh. Am I a spiritual being inhabiting this car, so to speak? And that's just a soul. We'll call it a soul. Then what are angels? Are they souls as well? Are they? It's just a hard question to ponder and answer because we'll never have the answer.
I think that I met an angel at the underground along from me, who held the door open, and he looked flesh and blood, but there was something that was not human about him that made
me. How did you recognize that?
I don't know. I think it was almost like, do you know these robots that we see being made? Like they look human, but they are robots.
Okay.
Maybe some rich guy wants a girlfriend who's a robot.
One of those special robots, yeah?
Yeah, one of those special robots, right? So you know what I'm talking about.
Get back in the cupboard.
Yeah. One of the ones that won't say anything. It won't talk back. But that, yes, it looks human, but there's something about it that's not. It's just not. So it's not quite human. It resembles a human, but it's not quite. So I think it was like that. But when I got back just a few short steps from the underground to my home, there on the path in front of my home, outside the gate, was 3 angel cards.
Right.
And those cards were written in German, but when I translated them, they gave me the answer to something that I'd been worrying about that day. And that was when I think, it kind of came to me that the person that I'd, seen at the underground, that I'd got that feeling about, was possibly an angel.
Interesting. Now he'd only opened the door for you, this chap, eh?
Yeah, but he had opened it like in front of him and stood back. Like, it was a weird way to do it. He didn't come in the door, and then hold it for me to walk through. He just opened it in front of him.
Like, and then held it, yeah.
Yeah, and held it like that. And I looked at him, he looked at me, but it was a kind of a neutral sort of expression. There was a little bit of concern, but it was mostly neutral. And I think I sort of mumbled thanks, but at the same time, I'm thinking something's not right. What is it? What's not right about that guy?
Here's a question for you, right? I've heard these before, and you probably have in your line of profession, that some people have said they've had interventions from angels, i.e., like a stranger comes along,
Hmm.
helps them fix their car, and then
Yeah,
they get home safe, that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Knowing that you thought that that chap was an angel, what sort of intervention was there for you there with just holding the door open? Or have you ever pondered that out?
Yeah, I would say yeah, you're right. I mean, was it necessary? But I think maybe to for me to realize that the angel cards had been left by an angel, that they weren't just there randomly. Somebody hadn't just walked by and dropped them randomly. They'd been put there
Do
for
you
me
think
to find.
do you think Holdy Doorman
Hold
was
it
the
or
one? Yeah, Holdy Doorman, that's his official title. Was he the chap that put those cards down for you, do you think?
yes, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I can't say. I can't
No, of
say.
course you can't, but it's
You
interesting to
know,
think about.
yeah. I mean, it was only a few short steps away from my home. It's just like where the underground is, it was just like halfway along the road. It wasn't far. And it was I think it was that it was two strange things, one after the other.
And it got linked
And
in your mind that
and
it's
it
that,
got
yeah.
it got linked. Yeah, yeah. And also in a meditation that I'd done when I was doing Reiki, the man resembled um uh, the angel Raphael in that meditation. So I think that again became linked in my mind that it could possibly have been Raphael, who's an angel of healing. And the cards this related to, I was coming back from a hospital. He's also an angel of travel, and it was at an underground. Um, and the situation, I think, was healed because of what I read on those cards. So, it my anxiety was healed because of what I read on those cards.
And that's amazing that if you, presumably it was an internal worry you had, so no one would have heard you speaking out, oh, I'm worried about
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
I'll quickly write a
exactly.
card. Jonah upstairs again, she's back on her bean bags, writing you a
Yeah,
card.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I want to talk to you now about your book, Mystic Visions, which will lead me into the precognition side of things.
Hmm.
So first off, what drove you to write your book, Mystic Visions?
I think because I've been involved in the paranormal community for a long, long time, I have, I do these conferences and things like that. I talk about bits and pieces on my own radio show, but nobody really knew the extent of things that had happened with me. And when I talked to friends like Ron Halliday and Malcolm Robinson about the sort of things that had happened in my life, they kept saying, you really should write a book about all this. You've got enough there for a book. Um, and I think I just thought I mean, I enjoy writing. I've always enjoyed writing. I've been writing since I was 14. I'd never really had anything published. Um, but I think it was these kind of things that, I thought, okay, I'll I'll write it down and see what happens. Don't really know who the book's intended for, but it's sort of semi autobiographical in that my experiences are in there, but there's other information in there as well from the research that I've done on certain things like the incubus or demonic possession and stuff like that. That's in there too. Yeah, I think it was time. I was encouraged to write it.
And you had the material, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was almost like a legacy, because I don't have any children to pass these stories on to. But these experiences, I think, have been important. I don't know who they might be important to, but I feel that they might be important to someone. Maybe, trainee mystics, or something like that, or just people who have had similar experiences. And people have said that to them. They've come back to me after reading it and said, I've had an experience like that, and I've thought about it over the years, and it's great that somebody else has had that experience as well, and they can talk to me about it. So yeah, I just felt it was important to somebody.
Here's a question, right? And I'm going to say this as a creative because I do songs, weird songs and animations and stuff, right? And I always say to everyone, I create them for me because I'm fulfilling some sort of weird in me to maybe get stuff out, that creative need to push material out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also say, obviously, if anyone else finds fun in them and all that sort of stuff, great. So from your perspective, do you think your book was for you to, I don't know, resolve maybe your history or some sort of catharsism, or was your intention to help people via the book?
It was a bit of both, really. I felt I had information inside that I needed to get out, but it was to get it out to people that it might help. Otherwise, there's no point on it. It wasn't just a creative process like, you write a piece of fiction that that people will enjoy, and you enjoy creating.
Yeah.
And I think that those things are important as well. I think creativity is a fabulous gift that we have been given. But yeah, I think it. I had information to give to people that would help them, and I felt the need to do that.
So you were compelled to complete a mission, so to speak.
I guess that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah.
Let's hit on the precognition side of things, because obviously mystic visions is basically saying that, isn't it, to a degree? To you, where is your involvement in precognition? Where does that come from? How did you get to wield that power, etc., etc.?
I really don't know. I mean, the first precognition, when I wasn't well. I think that's something that a lot of people who experience things, they have had illness in their life. And I've had illness my entire life since I was 2, leading to my first kidney transplant in my early 20s, and then my second kidney transplant in 2014. So I've had quite a lot of illness. I've forgotten where I was going with that.
It was somewhere good, and we know that.
It was somewhere really, really good and
amazing.
important. It was an amazing point. It answered life, the question.
It did, yeah, everything. In fact, all the remainder of my questions are all solved with this one.
Right, just ask me that question again.
So precognition, what is it that brought it to you, and how did you come to wield that power?
Okay, so that was why I was going to talk about being ill, because the first time I got a feeling that something would happen, something really bad would happen in New York and Paris. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where that thought came from. I didn't know a date, but that was in 1995. And then in 2001, I think that's right, about 3 months before 9/11, I started getting visions of planes coming through. I lived in a high rise. I started getting visions of planes coming through my window. And I just thought it was me thinking morbid thoughts from nowhere. Um, I would be saying to myself, what are you doing thinking about this? I'd be thinking, oh, I wouldn't stand a chance if a plane came through that window. And then I'd go, why on earth are you thinking something like that? For goodness sake. But this kept repeating, or I'd be looking out over the city at other high rises and seeing planes going into them and thinking people wouldn't stand a chance if a plane went into that building. Why am I thinking this? It was just a thought. To me, it was just a thought that randomly came into my head. As thoughts do randomly come into people's heads, but these were morbid, that things that I wouldn't normally think of. And that was 3 months before 9/11 happened. Then the night before the Paris attacks, I was sitting and I saw coming through my window this bullet-shaped bomb. And I thought, oh, here's something that could be a vision. It's not just in my head. It's not just a random thought. Because why would I think of something like that? And I sort of started, I'd also been going to development circles, so I had a little bit of knowledge about that, about mediumship and psychic awareness. And I just tuned in and I saw this city, and I saw there was like there was like a dome that I could see, and I immediately thought of Rome and thought, is the Pope going to be assassinated? But that was my own thoughts taking over. Is it this? Is it that? And I should just have done nothing. I should just have let the information come to me. Right across from me, where I was sitting, there were two pictures on the wall. One was of the Sacre-Cœur and one was the Eiffel Tower. The Sacre-Cœur is a very big church in Paris.
I'm glad you said that because I hadn't had a clue what that word was.
Yeah. So that's what they are. I didn't get it. I didn't know what it was I was being given. But those were the two things that I'd known something was going to happen about it back in 1995 when I was on dialysis. And I got that feeling that something bad was going to happen in New York and Paris. And those two things came to be. And they both involved visions.
And coming through your window, which is weird.
Coming through my window, yeah, I clicked onto that as well. Windows and doorways and things. My husband, he's a psychic medium, and he's noticed this as well, that windows and doorways seem to symbolize something. It's like a doorway or a window between this world and the unseen world. Something coming through from the other side.
With the key point being something coming.
Yes, yeah, yeah, it was coming through.
Mm.
Um, I I don't know why. I don't know why I was focused on those two things. Because I mean, let's face it, lots of bad things happen in the world,
Every
but
day, yeah.
every day. But these two were quite major things to us, to our society. These two things were quite major. Um, but I don't know. I don't know why, and I don't know where they came from.
See, the why one's an interesting one because even if it gave you absolutely precise detail, you can't do anything about it.
Mhm.
So it almost then you almost say, why on a why? Seriously, why are you giving me this information? I
Yeah,
can't do anything about it other than worry.
yeah, yeah.
What do you
I
think on that
know,
one?
I know. I I think exactly that. What was the point in me knowing that,
Yeah, what is the point exactly?
other than to tell people, that you can have these experiences, that precognition is a thing. It happens. Other than that, I don't know why I would get that, or just that these things were just so strong, so bad that they came through,
Yeah, sort of setting a ripple
you
through
know?
time or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that I picked up on.
Hmm. I'm leaning towards that. Like you're a
Hmm.
radio transceiver picking up on a weak wave, maybe getting stronger over time. I don't know, whatever that phrase
Yeah,
is, but
yeah,
because otherwise it does. It really, what's the point of precognition? It serves no purpose unless you've got definitives and you can change course of human history.
yeah. And the thing is that, who would you tell? Who would you pick up the phone and say to, I don't know, the president of the United States, so X, Y, and Z is going to have just had a vision. Are they really going to listen to that? They must get phone calls like that all the time
Yeah.
that are rubbish.
And there's obviously
No,
going to be some good ones mixed in there that are
will
real.
be, yeah, there
But
will
either
be.
way, you're going to be looked at as a crazy because either you could be a
Absolutely.
crazy for giving wrong information or crazy because, oh, she might be the person who's going to fly the plane.
Yep, absolutely. How does she
Mm.
know that information? Like Helen Duncan, she was a medium who saw that a, a ship, a boat that was on a secret mission had been sunk, and somebody in the circle there that night, her son was on board, and it was her son that came through. And she said, I'm sorry to tell you, I have your son here and he's just passed away. And she had all this information. She was arrested because they didn't know how she could possibly have known about that secret mission. She was arrested under the Witchcraft Act
Oh,
because
crikey.
it was still in force at that time. It's not now, but it was then. And it was the only, yeah,
Yeah.
it was the only thing that they could get her on. I mean, now I think they've got the Fraudulent Medium Act, but then it was witchcraft, the Witchcraft Act, and they prosecuted her under, or they arrested her under that. Um,
Bit harsh,
she
isn't
she
it?
did she yeah she did do a few fraudulent things as well, like like a lot of good mediums when they're under pressure to perform, they they might do something that's fraudulent. That's I've seen that a few times.
Have you?
Like
Oh, swans.
yeah, on
Yeah.
like TV mediums who were actually very good mediums, but they kind of sold out because they were put under pressure. Yeah, there's it happens. It
That's no
happens.
good.
But
As a thing, right? Does precognition allow us to see the future, i.e., the in capitals, or a possible future?
yeah, that's you're basically asking, can we change our fate? if we
Suppose.
know, if
Yeah.
yeah, if we know in advance what might happen, then can we change it? You would have to have enough information about what that was. And I guess you could, I mean, it's been said before that people have changed their future. So they've possibly seen what could happen.
Mm.
Or is it all written? I know, I mean, that is, again, that's a very big philosophical question that has been asked for thousands of years, you know.
Alyson, I'm expecting you to have all the answers to
You
these.
are, you are. I know, I know. What do I think? Yeah, I think you could possibly change your future if you have enough information.
I like that
Yeah,
because you're going down the positive route of,
yeah,
yeah, we can fix things.
yeah,
I
I
like
think
it.
so.
Um, you put some other things in your book, and there was from the synopsis I read on, I think on Amazon. It said that the book also states that astral projection and time travel were eventually achieved. Now that is a line I cannot pass up. So can you tell me about that?
Yes, I
It's a
can.
big statement.
Yeah, I know, I know. It happened, I'd experienced astral projection quite a lot. Well, a few times. When I say quite a lot, a few times. And I had been trying to do it, and eventually I realized, you know, just relax, don't panic when it starts to happen. And so when it did start to happen, when I started feeling myself coming out of my body, I just said, relax, 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 you know, like a mantra. And I just was zapped up into space. And I just spent a lot of time up there laughing because I'd actually achieved it, you
When
know.
you say zapped up, how
Yeah, it
does
was
that work?
quick. It was so quick.
So
I
you
it
were
just
here, and then all of a sudden you're in space. Is that what you
I,
mean?
I yeah, I mean, but I felt the movement
Oh,
of
okay.
going, you know, it wasn't just like beam me up, Scotty, you know. It was well, it kind of was, but it just felt like, you know, I just went up, but it was very quick. I mean, it was, you know, so fast. Um, and the earth just got further and further away, and then I was just up there floating about laughing. But I was able to go back at any point, and so this happened a few times, and then I decided, um, you know, I would have a look around Glasgow, above the streets of Glasgow, and um, see various different things, and just because I thought, what else can I do up here, you know? Um, and on one occasion, I felt really compelled to go and visit somebody that I hadn't seen for a long time. We'd fallen out. We'd fallen out because somebody had told lies and said that I'd said things that I hadn't said, in order to get me to fall out with this person.
Oh, that's devious.
It was quite deliberate,
Mm.
and the other person believed it. Anyway, I felt compelled to go to them, and I was panicking when I got there. Um, they were in bed, but I was panicking trying to waken them up. I don't know why. I didn't know why at all at that point. But I just knew that I had to wake them up. Um, so about a year later, I managed to get back in touch with this person. And they come up and they saw me, and I told them. They realized the kind of person that, you know, the liar had been. They found out for themselves. They realized, and they knew that I was telling the truth. and we made up. We made friends.
Good.
And he then told me that he had had a stroke about 6 years before. And what had happened was he had woken up in the middle of the night and someone was pulling back the covers and trying to waken him up. And when he woke up, he realized something was wrong, got to the phone, phoned an ambulance, got to the hospital, and was told that if he hadn't have got there when he did, he would have died. He had been having a stroke. So the story seemed to be exactly what I had done, was waking him up, pulling back the covers. And this was what he had experienced. But his experience was 5 years before. My experience was like a year before. So it suggested to me that in the astral world, time and space are nothing. They don't exist. You can go back 5 years and do something that makes a difference.
Two things here, right? One, I like that thought because I've spoken to other astral travelers before, and we've not covered this topic of traveling in time as well at the same point. But I can't see a reason why you wouldn't, and obviously your story supplements that, or adds weight to it. Does that mean then that we could astral project back in history to see how the pyramids were built? As an example, the obvious cliche.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Why aren't we hearing stories of that? That is what I want to get here. So get onto it, people who can do this astral projection thing. We should be hearing that more, shouldn't we? If it's a thing.
Yeah.
And here's the bigger one. What you've said, does that mean angels don't exist? We are the angels because you became the angel for your friend.
No, I still think that angels exist as a different form of life or being.
Okay.
I think, no, actually, it is a really good question because the Essenes believed that we could basically project and get to this place where we became angels. So it is a valid question. It's a great question. So yeah, on one hand, I think it's just that I'm uncomfortable thinking of myself as an angel.
Come on, angel.
Yeah.
Well, throw away your ego. Maybe it is real. Maybe we are all angels and I don't know.
Yeah. It seems egotistical to say, yes, I became an angel. But
You might
if
do that,
that
you?
was just, maybe that's just one sort of understanding of the phenomenon. But that's what the Essenes believed, and that they would be taken up among the angels and become angels themselves.
And then be brought back down to earth to carry on living. So that we're sort of like temporary angels, sort of.
Sometimes some didn't come back, but there's a story about that as well. I also think that possibly they ingested something in order to get to that state, which is something that shamans do as well. And so I think these states are possible when you ingest something, but you can also achieve those states without I didn't ingest anything. I think you can achieve these states without ingesting anything. But
so who else have you saved then on your astral journeys?
No, that was the only time. There was one time when I was in space that it seems really strange. One time I was floating
When I
about
was in space, yeah.
when I was in space. And I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do up here? So I shouted out, "Is there anybody there?"
Oh, that's a bit of a classic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of laughing myself, And this disembodied voice came back and said, "My planet is dying." And I said, "Can you show me?" So I never ever saw them, but we floated across, and then I saw this area below me that it was like land, but it was in weird colors, like luminous colors. And that was all I saw. And that's all I can remember from that experience. But the next day, I'm on Facebook, scrolling through Facebook, and here comes this same picture of this sort of landmass, but it was in like luminous colors, like it was showing like I think heat. You like heat on a map. You'd see these sort of some areas are kind of bright pink, and other areas are sort of bright lime or green. And the heading underneath was, "Is there life on Mars? Did I meet a spirit that used to reside on Mars? I don't know.
It's
Maybe."
another one that links to your other story, isn't it? Because that would be a time travel thing if we were originally from Mars, which is a given theory.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. We are Martians, literally.
yeah.
I think.
Maybe,
No, that's one of
maybe.
the theories is that we were
That is one of the
originally grew up on
theories.
Mars and then came
Yeah,
here
yeah,
when that planet died. It's an interesting one
yeah,
to ponder again.
yeah.
Right, before we get to the Koit zone, which we go even stranger with questions, I want to ask you a bit about the exorcism side of things. We've briefly touched on it, but I want to just flesh it out slightly more. So, have you been on a lot of exorcism cases yourself?
Not a lot, no, no.
Okay, is there one that stands out most to you as most scary, most strange, most whatever that you could relay to us?
Um, I think when the person was writhing about and growling, that was pretty. I never felt, there's just. I know I should feel scared, but I feel protected. I don't feel scared. I mean, there are other people there in case anything happens. There's at least one
Physically or spiritually?
physically,
Okay.
physically. Because spiritually I feel protected. I don't feel like anything will happen to me.
That's good.
Um, whether that's, just because of my faith, that I feel protected by the saints and angels. But I certainly, to begin with, the person was sort of growling. There was a little bit of drool, and then claws, sort of clawed-like hands, and there was lots of, as I say, writhing about and twisting of the body. So these things that you see in horror movies, they're not altogether untrue. They're not altogether made up. These things do occur, the sort of gravelly voice. Um, these things happen. And yeah, so that was probably what you would call the most frightening or unusual. I
And you resolved that one. So at the end, this person wasn't doing all that stuff.
Uh, in the end, the demon, there's a point where you can see that the demon is, you're winning, the demon is being expelled uh, out the mouth, comes out the mouth. Um, and sometimes the person will be sick, sometimes they'll expel a lot of air, which was what happened in this occasion. They'll expel a lot of air out the mouth. It's not just like burping, I mean, it's much more than that. Um, and and then and then the person was just like, wow, they were back to themselves again. Um, however, that the demon came back several times, and I've had to leave it at that, really, because they felt it wasn't working for them. The thing is that it did work. It's just that somehow the demon was let back in.
Do you think that's because the person wanted it back in, or did was the door left open, so to speak?
I really don't know. I really don't know. Um, but I gave enough information, to like do visualizations, like closing a door in the mind, a big door, heavy door, chains and padlocks and everything, and that door would not open. I think part of it is that my advice was that closing that door for good would mean that they couldn't use their psychic awareness, and they wanted to use their psychic awareness. But the thing is that that came with other stuff.
Mm.
So they would have to weigh up whether they continued down that path or whether they gave it up and turned to God, and they didn't want to do the latter.
So the intention wasn't really to close the door, like you say, which is what led to reinfection, so to speak.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And that's the thing, some people just are too open, and you can only help them so far. They have to do the rest. They
It's all
have
a
to be
personal journey,
willing.
isn't it? Yeah.
They have to be willing to keep that door shut, because they might just be I don't want to use the word weak. It's not about weakness, it's about openness. And they might just be too psychically open to be able to cope with what else might come through those doors or windows.
It's given me a lot of thought, that one, because I haven't really thought about that before. I don't think I've also got a really crap memory, so I might have done and just forgotten about it. But um, knowing that if you've got access to the light side of the psychic channels to wherever it goes, that you also it's kept open and other things can slide down that same channel.
Mhm.
One to ponder for my brain, I think, for the next few hours. What have you learned by having your visions and all these other experiences happen to you? What have you learned about yourself, the world, the universe, and how everything is made up from these experiences?
I think I've learned that the world is more than just the physical, that the spiritual does exist, that beings we've been told about do exist in more than just fantasy. They're more than just stories. There might be stories mixed in there, as well. There might be mythologies, but they're more than that. They're real. The actual beings are real, and they can help us. or they can attack us if they're, the nasty kind. But these things can be overcome. And that if you have the awareness and the abilities, you can help other people to overcome them. So yeah, there's more in heaven than earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy. That Horatio. Yeah.
Do you think, knowing what you know about the universe and how you think it's made up and created and how it exists and all that stuff, it's a question I'm sort of fascinated with. Are you happy with it, or would you rather it be something else?
Am I happy with the way?
How you think that the universe and spirits and souls and everything plays together as a whole thing? Are you happy with that, or would you rather it be something else?
Well, I would rather that the demonic didn't exist. But if it didn't exist, would we ever look for God?
I don't know.
And if we didn't look for God, if we were godless, what would we be? What's the alternative? The alternative is just the material life. And I don't want to live in a world that is just the material. I think, yeah, this mundane life without any spiritual side, is that worth? Is that how we should live?
It's a
I
question I don't know how to answer myself.
yeah, I think because we live in a world where lots of bad things happen in the material world. And if you didn't, if you weren't able to look to something bigger, I think you would give up hope. You would give up hope very quickly. But in a world where there is God and there are angels and there is something more, even if you don't believe in all those things, but just that you believe that there is something more, then you have hope. So the last thing that was left in Pandora's box when all the evils fell out into the world or escaped out into the world. And I think that that's what we have to have. Without a spiritual side to life, we don't have that.
So you keep everything as it is.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
ace. And we will move on from there because I don't think you can beat that answer. So we are now going to go completely irreverent and we are going to enter the Koit zone. Koit zone!
Dum dum dum.
Indeed. So these are just random and stupid questions. Answer best you can. So first
Okay.
one. If you were given the choice to swap out one part of your body for a bionic component, which would you choose?
Probably have to be my kidney because then I wouldn't have to take any medication if I had a bionic kidney.
What does a bionic kidney do? Just
Well,
work. Yeah.
it would deal with all the toxins in the body, filter. It's a filter
So it wouldn't have any
mechanism.
superpowers. It would just work for you. That's all.
Yeah, I don't. I don't, if I don't really need any superpowers, I don't think.
Okay. Bionic kidney is what it is then. That's fair. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe,
Second part.
maybe legs and hips because I now have a walking stick.
Hey, no,
So
you're only
yeah,
allowed to choose
I'm
one. You
only.
can't
Oh,
have.
come on! I
I
want
don't set the rules on these
more.
things.
Right, okay. Bionic kidney it is then.
Bionic kidney. Cool. What is your favorite cheese?
Probably just cheddar.
Now, are
Yeah.
you a mild?
I used to be vegan, but
Okay.
I'm back to being vegetarian again. So yeah,
Mild,
cheddar.
medium, or filth?
Mature.
That's what we call filth round here.
Okay.
Mature it is. Um, what music are you currently listening to? Not right now, obviously, but
Yeah. Um, gosh, I listen to a lot of classical music. Yeah,
lovely.
classical music. I like Chopin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't name any Chopin, but I do recognize,
Yeah.
symphonic music is a.
I've visited his grave in Paris
Ah,
on occasion. I wasn't a big fan back then, but I love his music. Is so emotional.
yeah. And that's good. Good music can
Mm.
stir the emotions.
Oh, it really does. It really
Definitely.
does. Mm.
Um, what YouTube rabbit hole have you recently fallen into?
YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Suddenly, you start seeing loads of videos on YouTube about stamp collecting. That's an example, and then you're watching a shed load of them.
It's probably cat videos. Cat videos, silly things that cats do. I love cats. I've got two of my own, and yeah, so I think that would probably be it wouldn't be a rabbit hole, it'd be a cat hole.
Yeah, no, but everything suggested to you is cats now. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
that algorithm works. Right. If you woke up one day and you were in a cartoon, as real as this reality, which cartoon would you prefer it to be?
And I can't say Tom and Jerry because there's a cat in that.
You can say whatever you want. So if you want to be in Tom and Jerry, that's cool.
A cartoon, let me think. Oh gosh.
Bear in mind, you're
I
going to be
don't
you in
know.
this cartoon. You're not suddenly a character. You're you in this cartoon world.
I'm me in this
Yeah.
cartoon world. So I've got a Bible in one hand and a crucifix in the other.
Yeah, you could do. Yeah,
Right, okay. Hmm. Maybe Scooby-Doo. What about Scooby-Doo? And then I
definitely.
could be an exorcist in Scooby-Doo.
Bang
I
on.
think that would be the one. That
And
would
you
be,
get to travel in the mystery machine. What more is there?
yeah. What more is there?
What is your favorite film?
Apart from The Exorcist, because that's probably an obvious one for me to say, because it is my favorite film, and I love The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, I've not seen that one yet.
That is probably, I've watched that now a couple of times, and I think that is a really good film. I really like it. Um, I would probably say, other than that, Jaws is one of my favorites. So it's between those ones.
Jaws and The Exorcist and The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah,
Hey, so it's been on my list for a while as to whether I should or shouldn't get The Pope's Exorcist. I,
it's worth watching. Yeah, yeah.
I'd have to
Good.
watch it on my own because Tiff doesn't like horror-y sort of films really.
Oh,
So
okay.
one for just me on a
It's
dark night.
it's got some humor in it as well. It does have some humor in it, so
Well, it'll go on my list
she
definitely.
might be okay with it.
Sometimes I not force her, but I put them on and she's just in the background. Then she realizes halfway through, actually, it ain't that bad. It's quite a good film.
Yeah.
And if it's not, she's asleep anyway, so it don't matter.
Yeah, Ian's
Have
the
you?
same.
Yeah, it's easily done. Have you ever broken a bone?
No, I haven't. No,
Quality.
no, just a
You,
kidney.
you can't break a bionic one, so that's good. When we get that installed, you're winning. What is the most delicious taste?
Oh, See, being a Taurian, we're very sensual creatures, and we love food. And I think one of my favorite flavors would be Haagen-Dazs cheesecake, strawberry cheesecake ice cream.
Have you got any in your fridge or freezer now?
I don't. I ate it.
That was like 2 minutes before this, yeah? Yeah.
I've given up meals just to eat Haagen.
I've never had any of that, but I'm sure. What did you say the flavour was again? Cheesecake?
Strawberry cheesecake.
Right, see, I wouldn't have it because of the strawberry component, but the cheesecake sounds
Oh,
nice.
uh-huh.
If it was a chocolate one, I'd have it, but
I
fair
don't
play.
think they've got. I don't think they do. They might do a brownie or something.
Yeah. Can you write a letter on my behalf to get them to start one, please?
Chocolate
Good.
cheesecake. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
On a similar theme, what is the worst thing you've ever eaten?
The worst thing. Oh my goodness. I Well, I'm not that fond of seaweed crisps.
That couldn't be any more random. That's the worst thing you've eaten, seaweed crisps. God, I would have said Sprouts or something, but
Oh no, I love sprouts.
yeah, oh God, they're
Yeah.
worse things.
I don't like asparagus. Asparagus is something that,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
not a favorite.
no, not of mine either. Ugh. It's the final one here in this Koit zone. What is the best sound in the world?
A cat purring is the best sound because it's so contented.
Yeah, I
Soft,
know.
the soft purring of a cat.
I'm kind of with you on that. That is a good sound.
Mm,
You've chosen wisely.
I have chosen wisely.
Thank you. We are now ended the Koit zone, which leaves us two final questions before
Okay.
we wrap up. So first off, we always ask everyone, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities, stroke, guilty pleasures?
Oh, I love watching movies. We watch a couple of movies every day.
Good stuff.
So yeah, I really do. And it doesn't have to be horror, and quite like comedy. We've been watching Bad Boys, the Bad Boy films with Will Smith recently. Quite like things like that, and murder mystery things, quite like those.
What did you watch
Um,
yesterday?
Yesterday it was the latest Bad Boy movie that we watched. Guilty pleasure. A guilty pleasure. I don't know if it is a guilty pleasure, but well, there's two films that I really enjoy. One is Lake Placid,
Oh, right, the alligator
and
one.
yeah, and the other is Tremors.
The worms. Yeah.
And yeah, and they are probably guilty pleasures of mine.
Have you seen all the Tremors and the series?
I've not seen all the Tremors, and I've not seen the series. No, no.
Yeah,
I've seen the
you'd
first
like
one.
it.
Okay, I will give that a go.
Definitely give them a
Um,
go.
so I've seen the first one, and I've seen the one where the army guy meets his, or whatever you call him, meets his son. I think that's number 5. I can't remember, but I think it's
It's been
number
so
5.
long since I've seen them, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're good. I think they're funny. Um, yeah. Other guilty pleasures would probably just involve food.
And
Like
mainly ice cream, yeah.
and Doritos. And
Which is your flavour of choice on Doritos?
Maltesers as well. Doritos, it would be the chili Doritos.
I've not tried those.
You've not tried the hot chili Doritos?
No, I don't like chili, you see. I wouldn't
Well,
imagine.
see, it's more of a kind of a tomatoey flavour.
I don't like tomatoes.
You maybe not like them then.
They got tomatoes in tomatoes, so I can't have them.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, I like them anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to not like them just because of what I said. So chilly it is. Okay, which leads us to our final question. What are you currently working on? Is there another project you're involved with, or is there something else you're working on?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a biography of my husband,
Oh,
who's a psychic medium. And he's been involved in psychic mediumship since the 80s. So he's got a lot of experience. He has seen a lot of things over the years. And his life is an extremely interesting one. And I think it will make for a very good book.
when do you
I
think
hope,
that's coming out?
I don't know. I really don't know. What are we on just now? July.
Yeah.
I would like to have it done by the next conference, which will be next June. I think it will be next June anyway. Don't have a date for it yet, but I would quite like to have it done by then, but I don't know. I really don't know. I procrastinate far too much and watch far too many movies when I should be sitting down and getting on with it. But
Yeah, distractions are the
that's
bane of creativity, unfortunately.
yeah, absolutely,
I know that all
absolutely.
too well. Alyson, thank you ever so much for your time. It's much appreciated. Again, I learned a lot today. And I would suggest anyone listening or to this or watching this video, check out the links in the description to Alyson's sites, Facebook pages, etc., etc., etc. Links to the book, so go and check those out. Alyson, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.